Fantastic. Thank you very much. So hello to everyone. Thank you for having me. So I think I've got around 10 or 15 minutes to present on BlackRock's approach to engaging with listed company boards, particularly on diversity. So hopefully you'll come away from this session with a good understanding of our work in this area and also our evolving expectations of investee companies as well. So just very quickly about myself, so more or less 20 years in the field of ESG, working at both third-party providers such as ISS, but also asset managers like JP Morgan Asset Management and Pictet. I joined BlackRock in May of last year and managed a team of 3 analysts that engage with companies in the industrial sector, materials sector, and technology, media, and telco sector as well. I'm going to start very high level with a couple of slides, just firstly on the importance of the investment stewardship function and how it is constructed at BlackRock. So our investment stewardship activities are a very crucial component of our fiduciary approach to our clients. Investment stewardship is very much how we use our voice as an investor to promote sound corporate governance and sustainable business models to help maximize long-term shareholder value for our clients, the vast majority of whom are investing for long-term goals such as retirement. We're a long-term shareholder in the companies in which our clients are invested, and we look to boards and management to serve the interests of long-term shareholders and other stakeholders as well. And our active and ongoing dialogue with the leaders of these companies gives us a valuable perspective on the business challenges that they face and their strategies for overcoming these challenges as well. Promoting sound governance is very much at the heart of our stewardship program. We believe that high quality leadership and business management is essential to delivering sustainable financial performance, which is why we focus very much on board quality, effectiveness, and accountability across the broad universe of companies globally that our clients are invested in. In addition to the direct dialogue that with the companies that we invest in, we help shape some of the norms in corporate governance, sustainability and stewardship through our participation in private sector initiatives and the public policy debate. Now, given our substantial book of index investing, we're very mindful of the long-term nature of our investments. We hold companies on behalf of our clients for as long as those companies are part of an index. And a long-term approach requires consistency and continuity in our interactions with those companies, and a properly resourced function is absolutely crucial to this. So in this regard, our stewardship function is very much a differentiator for BlackRock. The team is one of the largest of its kind in the industry, which is very much reflective of how important this component is within BlackRock's investment process and how we interact with portfolio companies. So we started this year with nearly 70 dedicated professionals working in 10 offices globally. And as a global investor, we believe it's important to build relationships with companies, clients, policymakers, and other stakeholders locally. Our experience is that long-term relationships we have built through having a local presence, often in a local language, support constructive dialogue with all market participants. So it's just a couple of KPIs that illustrate the team's activity. So in the year to June 2021, we exercised our fiduciary duty as regards voting at over 17,000 company meetings and on over 165,000 proposals. And we vote to achieve an outcome we believe is most aligned with our clients' long-term economic interests, aligned with our voting guidelines, and supplemented by the engagement that we have with companies. When necessary, we receive input from our investment team as well, so we have a regular collaboration with them. We are also, as a team, involved in more than 340 industry events globally. Year after year, members of the stewardship team participate in global and market-level industry discussions with the goal of furthering dialogue on matters deemed important to investors, such as improving disclosures and more effective market practices for long-term investors. So our global principles set out our stewardship philosophy and our views on corporate governance standards that support long-term value creation by companies. And our market-level voting guidelines provide detail on how we implement the principles, taking into consideration local market standards and norms. And together they form the basis of our stewardship activities, including thought leadership, engagement with companies, and proxy voting. We update the principles and voting guidelines annually to reflect changes in market standards and to help companies understand our views on emerging corporate governance issues. And in 2021, we made updates to our policy in line with our intensified approach to sustainability, so a heavy focus on climate change in particular. So in that context, our 2022 update was much more incremental and sought to reflect our latest views on certain governance issues and incorporated insights gained from company engagements, client feedback, changes in regulation, and our own and third-party research as well. So for this year, we made 5 notable updates to global principles which were focused on diversity, ESG criteria in director compensation, changes in corporate form, climate risk, and sustainability reporting. And it's the first of these broad diversity where I will be diving deeper over the coming minutes. So our expectation in this area is that boards should adjust their composition in line with the evolution of company strategy and market environment, including a long-term aspiration of meaningful diversity, at least consistent with local regulatory requirements and best practices assessed in the context of the company's domicile, business model, and strategy. On top of that, we also expect boards to have a sufficient number of independent directors to ensure objectivity in decision-making and oversight of management. So why do we engage on this? Well, we believe it is beneficial for new directors to be brought onto the board periodically to refresh the group's thinking and in a manner that supports both continuity and appropriate succession planning. We expect companies to keep under regular review the effectiveness of their board and assess directors nominated for election or re-election in the context of the composition of the board as a whole. This assessment should consider a number of factors, including the potential need to address gaps in skills, experience, diversity, and independence. We're interested in diversity in the boardroom as a means to promoting diversity of thought and avoiding groupthink. So we ask boards to disclose how diversity is considered in board composition, including demographic characteristics such as gender, race or ethnicity, and age, as well as professional characteristics such as industry experience, specialist areas of expertise, and geographic location as well. We also assess diversity in the context of the company's domicile, business model, and strategy. And self-identified board demographic diversity can be useful when disclosed in aggregate consistent with local law. We also believe that boards should aspire to meeting diversity of membership at least consistent with local regulatory requirements and best practices, while recognising that building a strong, diverse board can take time. This position is very much based on our view that diversity of perspective and thought in the boardroom and the management team and throughout the company can lead to better long-term economic outcomes for companies. Academic research already reveals some correlation between specific dimensions of diversity and effects on decision-making processes and outcomes. And in our experience, greater diversity in the boardroom contributes to more robust discussions and more innovative and resilient decisions. Over time, greater diversity in the boardroom can also promote greater diversity and resilience in the leadership team and the broader workforce as well. And that diversity can enable companies to develop businesses that more closely reflect and resonate with customers and the communities that they serve as well. So what does this actually mean in practice? Well, the conversations we have on board composition and diversity are part of almost every engagement that BlackRock's investment stewardship team undertakes. However, this is very much in the context of creating a board that engenders diversity of thought through different skills, careers, and lived experiences as well. Diversity, whether it be gender or ethnicity, is very much one of the building blocks in creating the type of board that we believe supports long-term risk-adjusted returns whilst recognising and adapting to the needs of all stakeholders in the companies. So from a statistics point of view, more than 2,000 of our engagements in the year to 30th June 2021 involved some discussion on board quality, including diversity. We very often use our vote where we see persistent lagging behind the market. So for the same time period, we issued more than 1,500 votes votes against directors in the Americas region for broad gender concerns. And typically in such situations, we will target either the board chair or members of the nomination committee. Fundamentally, we do have to have designated thresholds for board diversity to help us determine leaders and laggards in the space, but we recognise that there is a regional nuance as well. So, for example, in the US, we have a 30% requirement on diversity, but that includes both gender and underrepresented groups. In the UK, our requirement is 33% on gender, which aligns with government-mandated reviews. In addition, a more recent review known as the Parker Review now requires FTSE 100 boards to appoint at least one director of colour. So we're watching that very closely to see how that develops over the near term. And whilst our broad requirement in EMEA is 30% on gender, in some countries we recognise that local codes of practice focus more on the numbers. So there we focus at boards that have 2 female directors as a minimum. I think we need to also point out that these conversations that we're having are not just limited to the board. We're also asking companies to provide details on diversity levels throughout the workforce, and if they've set targets in this area, what are the levers that are being used to drive change? For example, do such targets factor into CEO compensation, or do they have initiatives in place that will help management promote diversity and inclusion? We also recognise, though, that some industries, particularly heavy industries such as mining or aerospace, have not traditionally been favoured by women. Therefore, we very much want to give companies an appropriate amount of time to address diversity, not just at the board level, but throughout all layers of the organisation. However, we also have to be very mindful of the direction of travel on this, and the EU has recently said that it's going to mandate that companies should have 40% of non-executive posts or 33% of all director posts going to the underrepresented sex by mid-2026 with potential penalties for non-compliance. So this is, to round out, just to say this is very much a topic that will continue to be a core theme of our ongoing engagement and voting programme. And I will just close out with the usual disclaimers that you can see there. That's all I had to say. I don't know if there were any questions or comments or space for that, but thank you for giving me the time today.